evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson tonight.
I think it's worth taking a critical look at Tucker Carlson because, like it or not, he gets 4 million viewers every night. So he's doing something that really rings with people.
Friday. It has been a long week in the news business. All sorts of things you thought could never happen did in fact happen, and then vice versa. A whole lot of predictions failed to materialize. The big theme of the week, as usual, was lying. There was an extraordinary...
One thing that's going to be interesting to point out, two things actually, is what he actually is. Does he actually say any news? And when he pops these pictures up, like, I wanted to take a notice of the messages he wants to portray when he pops these pictures up. Because when he pops these pictures up, he's really like going to your gut, right? He's trying to go past your rational thinking, and you see that picture, and that gives you the idea already that he's trying to put into your head. So let's see what this idea is.
Extraordinary amount of lying. At this point, the people in charge seem like they tell the truth only by accident. Occasionally, somebody in power will say something true and is swiftly punished for it. Can't have that.
Also, the voices. Also, good pause.
It's infuriating to watch, but it's also, if you look at it right, very amusing. These are not sophisticated deceptions. This is not Dwight Eisenhower stealthily planning D-Day. This is your 5-year-old ambling in with frosting on his face to tell you he never touched the birthday cake. Should that make you mad? Of course it should make you mad. But if you're human, you will also laugh at it. Cake? What cake? It's hilarious. The kid has no idea how ridiculous he is. So with that spirit in mind...
So that entire segment was just appealing to your emotions. He has said no facts, no information whatsoever yet.
We're going to devote the next hour to a special presentation on lying in American politics. So we're going to do our best to stay amused, because that's much better than being angry. And we're going to start with what could be the funniest lie of the year.
And there he just said he's going to go through the whole thing, not with an air of seriousness, not with a critical view, but with a mockery view, just right from the beginning, that he doesn't want you to even consider anything but mockery in all of these stories.
Vladimir Putin blew up Russia's natural gas pipeline to Europe. Now, why would Putin do something like that? Well, they told us because he's evil. Putin is so evil.
And so the first lie he gives, he does this all the time. That's a good point. Obviously, I shouldn't say obviously, but I think it's very clear that people other than Russia had better motives to blow up this pipeline. And then you go to the Biden clip, which I'm sure he'll play in a second, that we will take out this pipeline. Trust me, we'll do it. So this is a decent thing. He'll point out one decent lie that probably is a lie that they've told, and then maybe the next one will be a little less decent, and he'll descend until the last one is probably not even a lie. Well, I don't want to say. Let's let him speak for himself.
That he murdered his own country's economy purely for the dark thrill of doing it. That's evil. It takes a bad man to declare war against himself. Next, Putin will be invading Moscow. So that was their story, the story the Biden administration told us. And then every single news organization in the country, with no exceptions at all, backed up the lie. Of course Putin did it. They lectured us. Don't ask questions or you're a Russian agent.
Another very interesting thing he does, where when he talks about mainstream news, he does not include Fox in that, even though Fox is one of the most mainstream news. I believe he is the most viewed nightly program. Yet he'll say that the mainstream media doesn't cover things, even though he covered things. And that's how it's supposed to work, right? You have different sides that do both sides. Just interesting to point out that he goes against the media and speaks things that I believe about the media. I just believe the bad things he says about the media also apply to himself.
There was for a moment a perfectly united front of falsehood on the question of what happened to Nord Stream. But it wasn't enough. The story was too absurd to stand, even by the standards of 2023. Anyone who thought about it for even a moment realized that, of course, Vladimir Putin didn't blow up his own pipeline. Why would he do that? The Biden administration blew up Vladimir Putin's pipeline. Of course. Joe Biden himself had promised on camera that he would do it, and then Biden officials publicly celebrated.
That's what I said.
So every rational person knew the truth. So after a few months, the people who lie for a living decided to make up a news story. Unfortunately, this one was even dumber and less believable. Okay, they conceded. Putin didn't do it. That was wrong. We'll admit it. It was not Putin who blew up the pipeline. It was the Ukrainians. But not the Ukrainians you're familiar with, the ones who are getting billions of American tax dollars every month. No. Not our Ukrainian friends. They would never do that. It was Ukrainians we've never met. It was...
See, another good point. I mean, in my view, like, what's the difference between the Ukrainian army and random Ukrainians? I mean, that's not true. But yeah, random Ukrainians aren't going to go out on this, like, crazy mission. That's definitely true. And either way, I actually don't even care about that.
Rogue Ukrainians acting against Russia, but with no
Another good
connection to the
point.
Biden administration
Decent point.
whatsoever. These are good people fighting for a noble cause, but doing it entirely on their own without our assistance or knowledge. That's what the New York Times told us actually happened. And then everybody swallowed it. Watch CNN.
In a separate but parallel story, we've been learning more, Kate, about the Nord Stream attack. You remember the Nord Stream pipeline back in September saw an explosion, a sabotage effort. It is the subject of an ongoing investigation by German authorities. According to New York Times report, they say that they believe that, according to sources, it may have been perpetrated by a group aligned with the aims of Kyiv, but not actually backed by Kyiv, not run by Kyiv, an independent group acting on its behalf.
Plus, then that might be true. It's probably backed by the U.S.
Totally independent. Now imagine if you found
Hate when he
yourself
laughs about it,
repeating
though.
something that ridiculous on television. Here you have an explosion, a three-part explosion that was part of a deep-sea operation in the Baltic Sea, 300 feet underwater, that happened at exactly the moment that NATO war games are going on in the area. So you would think that there was probably some involvement from a military somewhere. But no, says the lady on the TV, repeating the New York Times. It was a shadowy, unnamed group of totally independent Ukrainians who happen to live in a country that the Biden administration runs and whose pensions are being paid for by you.
He just does this to add the emotion to it. Like, to try to get people away from thinking about anything rationally and just jumping straight to emotions every time. He does a good job with it.
Right, totally independent. Does anyone really believe that? Does a single human being, including the hair hats repeating it, actually believe that? No. And that's the thing about so many of these lies. You don't believe them, but you're not special. Nobody believes them, even the people repeating them. And nowhere is that more true than on the question of the climate emergency. Here's the climate emergency.
So see, he goes straight to one that's like a decent point that he'll make, and then right into saying that climate change is a lie. Quick bait and switch.
That's what climate change is about. It is literally, not figuratively, a clear and present danger. The latest climate report, nothing less than, quote, code red for humanity.
What is with that
Let me say
in
it
you?
again. Code red for humanity.
Okay, so you can buy that or not. And by the way, a lot of good people, some smart people, people of good faith do believe that, and that's okay. But do the people telling you that believe it? Does Joe Biden actually think that climate change is code red for humanity? Well, don't listen to what he says, watch what he does. This week, Biden spoke to Canada's Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, about how terrifying this climate emergency is. But he didn't talk to Trudeau on Zoom. No! Instead, he flew on a private airplane to the capital of Canada, Ottawa, where he and Justin Trudeau drove around the city in a 20-vehicle convoy.
Okay, so many things to point out in that segment. First off, before it goes by, Ottawa, that is not how you pronounce that, right? And he does this a lot, I feel like, purposely mispronounces, like, like, not even foreign things, but even close to foreign things, he'll mispronounce on purpose, just to make him sound even more foreign. Even though there, it almost even sounded like he was, like, trying to show to people that he was purposely mispronouncing it. Even that still, I think, accomplishes the same goal. And then the whole argument about the private jets. I mean, what, you want Biden to fly commercial? And that's the same with all these people. You want them to fly commercial. And this one, I think it's Wendover, has a really good video about private jet economics. And it kind of does make sense that it takes so much time to fly commercial. And these people's time, I mean, to them at least, is worth a lot of money. And Wendover is definitely not like a right-wing place. So feel like I generally tend to agree with what he has to say. And yeah, you can't expect all these people to fly commercial. And you can't do it over Zoom. I mean, you got to have a meeting, right? You got to, like, actually talk to a bunch of people in person. And he's flying all over the place anyway, so a quick flight to Canada, that's nothing. Did he ever go to Ohio, though? I don't think he did. I think we just forgot about that.
Complete with ambulances and armored vehicles. Now, if you were concerned about climate change being driven by humans and the burning of fossil fuels,
He'll probably talk about Ohio,
which produce
too.
carbon dioxide, you probably wouldn't behave like that. You'd probably just get on the phone and talk about climate change. But they didn't. And none of the global warming experts who were telling you that your Suburban is a sin said a word about it. In fact, they were busy lecturing you about the rest. Your wood stove, your gas stove. You remember in January, the gas stove ban was a conspiracy theory. Anyone who was worried about the government cracking down
Was
on
it
their
not?
kitchen was a nutcase.
Did that ever
Ruby
happen?
Ridge level wacko. The New Republic reported back then, and we're quoting, people are getting real heated over a gas stove ban that isn't happening. Note and appreciate the pun. So that's always the first move. You're imagining it, crazy person. Then we move forward a couple of months, and the conspiracy theory is
So we banned gas stoves?
Well, it's true, and if you disagree with it, you're a wacko. This is from Politico, a political blog in Arlington, Virginia, yesterday. Quote, New York nears deal to ban gas stoves in new homes. So great. So they say something, if you take it seriously, it's your fault because it's not true, and then they tell you that in fact it is true, and if you don't agree with it, you're a criminal. You see this a lot. You're told something, you're required to believe something that's clearly
So
false.
nearing, so it hasn't
Along
happened.
with it, you're banned from social media and harassed, and maybe you can't use Airbnb, and maybe if you keep talking, JP Morgan cancels your bank account. And then once you submit, they admit, actually, yeah, you're right. Now, you've seen this on a lot of different topics, but you never saw it more clearly at a more sustained pace than over the 3 years of COVID. Remember they told you, of course you remember because they told you every day, this was a pandemic of the unvaccinated.
I love that he's got little bits like that in there that have to be scripted, right? But they're supposed to sound like they're off the cuff. But no, they're definitely on the teleprompter. He just reads them out like that.
Is, as we've said, a pandemic and an outbreak of the unvaccinated.
This is becoming a pandemic of the unvaccinated.
As Dr. Walensky said on an earlier briefing today, this is really becoming a pandemic of the unvaccinated.
Still a long way to go. The fact is, this has been a pandemic of the unvaccinated.
Yeah, so we're going to use this global pandemic, which was a legitimate health threat, to push our political goals and to vilify and isolate and punish with law enforcement people who didn't vote for us. If you're trying to convince people to fear doctors and never go to the doctor again, this is exactly what you would do. And of course, that's the effect for millions of people. Faith in our medical system has evaporated because of their lying. And of course, we know they're lying because the vaccinated started getting COVID at a higher rate than people who exercised and ate well and maybe developed natural immunity. So in the face of that undeniable
Is that one of those
science,
things you can't ever prove?
But
That's just one of those things you can't ever prove, is you can't get data on all those different health things that he just listed. You can get data on vax people. And he did say rate, he didn't say number. I love calling him out on mathematical issues, which he makes out a lot. His numbers probably is true. I'm sure a larger number of vaccinated people got COVID than unvaccinated people. That's just because everybody got vaccinated. It's the same idea with seatbelts. More people that, like most people that die in a car crash are wearing seatbelts just because everybody wears a seatbelt in a car. So the rate might not be the same, but the numbers are the same. Same with white people killed by cops. There's more white people killed by cops than black people. But it's about the rate. It's not about the number. That's just true because there's more white people.
for some reason, nobody told Senator Tina Smith of Minnesota to update her talking points. So here she was on Tuesday of this week, assuring everyone, in the words of the advertisements, this medicine is safe and effective.
Thank you, Mr. Mansell, for being with us today. So,
Also, they really have been running with the vaccine is not effective train lately. But that is just not true, right? Like, the vaccine has been proven with its effectiveness. It's not 100% effective. Like, we all knew that. At least we all should have known that from the beginning, but it is still effective.
I want to start by just saying that the COVID-19 vaccine is safe and effective.
I mean, how is that?
And that's a
different from
lie?
the Nicene Creed. You just repeat it every week. You don't think about what it means. You just repeat the slogans. It's literally a liturgy. Safe and effective, really. A shot that gives young people heart inflammation without protecting them from COVID. That's safe and effective.
Does protect them from COVID. Low cases of heart stuff.
All this level of lying does is make people cynical. Not simply about the people in charge. You have every reason to be cynical about them, but about words themselves. Is there a connection between a word and a physical, observable reality? Oh, I'm not sure anymore. Karine Jean-Pierre at the White House has never even thought.
Now, let's rewatch that last section, and let's pretend that Tucker is talking about himself when he talks about people that lie.
Young people heart inflammation without protecting them from COVID. That's safe and effective.
So he's talking about himself here.
All this level of lying does is make people cynical. Not simply about the people in charge. You have every reason to be cynical about them, but about words themselves. Is there a connection between a word and a physical, observable reality? Oh, I'm not sure anymore. Karine Jean-Pierre.
I love thinking about it like that. You can make an interesting video about Tucker Carlson and just change the color when he starts talking like that. Just like when he's in one color, he's talking to himself, and then when he's in the other color, he's just talking like normal. He's the same exact problems like what I said earlier. The people in the media are a problem. He's in the media. He's a problem. He makes every one of those connections, except for the very last one.
The White House has never even thought about that, or much. Here she is confronted with the evidence that the Biden family took a 7-figure payout from China. Watch carefully, maybe for the first time in your life, to how she responds.
House Oversight says they've got bank records showing a Chinese energy company paying 3 Biden family members through a third party. What were they paid for?
Look, I'm just not going to respond to that from here. Look, we have heard from House Republicans for years and
It
years
does seem
and
like
years,
somebody you should respond to.
how the inaccuracies and lies when it comes to this issue. And I don't even know where to begin to even answer that question, because again, it's been lies and lies and inaccuracy for the past couple years, and I'm just not going to get into it from here.
So she's going with the...
Here's some bank records.
She's just going with the Biden laptop is fake thing, and that's why you can't talk about that, because everything on the laptop is fake. I mean, yeah, I don't know about that. I haven't been a big fan of what she says, to be honest.
Here's some numbers on paper that no one disputes are real. What do you say to this? Republicans lies years up. In other words,
But no one disputes are real. See, that's a lie. She just disputed they're real. So, I mean, there are people who dispute that they are real. Maybe there's just one. Maybe there's her. But there are people who dispute they're real. Did she not just dispute that they are real? And she said that we've had many discussions disputing they are real. So people dispute they're real. Tucker?
Sopping wet. The water seems to be coming from the sky. Is it raining? Lies, lies! Of course, that's their response. They always accuse you of exactly what they themselves are doing. Remember when they told you that John Fetterman was totally qualified to be a senator, and he had no debilitating mental issues whatsoever? In fact, he's way sharper than you are.
But now he has
Shut
depression,
up,
so
Dumbo.
that disqualifies you.
Whatever happened to John Fetterman, by the way? Where is he? He's supposed to be serving in the U.S. Senate. Can someone take a picture of him holding up today's paper so we can be certain?
How many senators do you hear of on a daily basis, Tucker? I'm sure there's probably half of the senators that you haven't heard their name in the news at all since, the election.
But Karine Jean-Pierre doesn't care. Republicans, lies, it's been years.
That's
And
a
of course,
funny
she
picture.
has to say that because she does not want to get into the details about what her own boss, the President of the United States, is saying, who really seems, and will concede in a very amusing way, utterly disconnected from reality. So he began his campaign, you probably remember, right around 2019, from telling us how he liberated Nelson Mandela from Robben Island, from prison in South Africa. And it's just gotten more florid from there. And we are absolutely determined to be amused by Joe Biden. So here he is telling you that during Selma, he was actually at the forefront of civil.
I love when his teleprompter's late and he just has to wait because he has no idea what to say without the teleprompter, because none of these are his words or thoughts. They're all just the people writing them. And they're not even the writer's words or thoughts. It's just the message that they want to convey and the way they want to convey it. And damn, they do a good job with it.
Rights. He may have been on the Edmund Pettus Bridge. Watch this.
I was a student up north in the civil rights movement. I remember feeling how guilty I was. I wasn't here. How could we all be up there? And you going through what you went through, looking at those, I can still picture the troopers with the batons and wands and whips.
Can you even imagine what Joe Biden's actual racial attitudes were in 1963
how could you know?
in Delaware? This is the same Joe Biden who told us he was in the car with his dad 60 years ago and saw two men in downtown Wilmington kissing each other. And his father said, Joe, you got to support gay marriage. So there's something almost metaphysical going on here. You have people who believe if they say...
I mean, that probably is a lie. Joe's got a good racist past, right? And a good anti-gay past. I mean, pretty recent anti-gay past, right? I mean, a lot of the Democrats were anti-gay. Or at least not anti-gay, but like anti-gay rights in terms of them getting married and stuff. Pretty sure there's good quotes about him saying that gays shouldn't be married. Very recently. Like 2007 recently.
Say something, it will become true. Their words will create reality itself. Wow. That's the same standard, by the way, that the Biden administration seems to be applying to what's happening to the former president and to children and gender ideology. They want you to believe that 8-year-old boys can become women overnight just by wishing for it. That's why Kamala Harris just sent a letter praising a man dressed as a woman. That's why she goes around yapping about her pronouns. We can't resist this clip. It's too great.
I am Kamala Harris. My pronouns are she and her. I am a woman sitting at the table wearing a blue suit.
That's an old clip.
So we're not going to say anything
ridiculous.
snarky about that. That's just so great. And if there's one piece of video evidence that we can save in the time capsule inside all of our hearts to represent what it was like to live in this country in 2023, it's that right there. Kamala Harris. She, her, my pronouns, and I'm wearing a pantsuit. Yes, you are. So one of the great lies going on right now is that the former president of the United States, who is also, once again, the frontrunner for the Republican nomination, Donald Trump, has committed some kind of crime in the state of New York, for which at some point he's going
right
to be
into the new big
indicted.
lie.
Now, we could have had a lot of people on to talk about this. Trump defenders, people who voted for Trump. We thought it would be more credible and probably a lot more interesting to have someone who did not vote for Trump, who does not agree with Trump, but who's pretty serious about the law and has spent his life in it.
And it cuts off.
So the Biden administration has made a practice now for over 2 years of picking federal judges based on the way they look, based instead of their competence. And the confirmation hearings for these judges are as painful as you would
I think it was the next video he posted.
Ketanji Brown Jackson famously said she can't define a woman, and yet she's somehow in the Supreme Court. Another judicial nominee in Washington State couldn't explain what Article 2 of the Constitution is. Wants to be a federal judge. And then there's the latest, a guy called Cato Cruz. It's Biden's nominee to a federal judgeship. How did he do in the hearings? Well, here's a clip.
Tell me how you analyze a Brady motion.
This dude has got so much skin. I'm sorry, I gotta just say something. It just flops everywhere when he talks. And he tries to sound intimidating, and just all I can see is just like his skin flaps just going. Also, why is he wearing a Gryffindor tie? He would definitely be a Slytherin or a Hufflepuff. Anyway.
How I analyze a Brady motion?
Yes.
Senator, in my 4.5 years on the bench, don't believe I've had the occasion to address a Brady motion in my career.
Do you know what a Brady motion is?
I don't know what a Brady motion is.
Senator, in my time on the bench, I've not had occasion to address that, and so it's not coming to mind at the moment what a Brady motion is.
Is that something that we all should know? I mean, he would know.
He later guessed it must have something to do with gun control because President Reagan's press secretary was called Brady, and he got shot, and his wife became a gun control advocate, right? So this is not a small question to miss. The Brady that...
I mean, maybe he'll explain it, but what's most likely is that just he's not the type of lawyer that would have to deal with that. Like, there's so many different types of lawyers. That's what some people get confused by. Like, there's so many different types of lawyers, and they can be so different from each other.
That Senator Kennedy referred to emanates from the Supreme Court case that requires government to turn over exculpatory evidence to the defense. That's the core of our justice system. By the way, that's the rule the DOJ violated in hundreds of cases of January 6th defendants. This guy, who wants to be a federal judge, had no clue what it was. That's a deal ender right there. No, you can't be a federal judge. Sorry, go do something useful with your life. You can't be a judge. You probably will be. Ned Ryan is CEO of American Majority. He joins us tonight. Ned Ryan, thanks so much. I don't know what is going on, but when they start, look, it's fine if you have flaky sociology professors or administrators at Stanford or whatever, who cares? But airline pilots, heart surgeons, and federal judges, like, why are we allowing this?
Well, I think this is the entire point for progressives. I mean, you have a judge that doesn't know Article 2 or Article 5 of the Constitution. This gentleman that doesn't know the Brady motion, the Brady rule. Again, as you pointed out, where hundreds, if not thousands, of Americans are being denied this basic right.
Maybe you should know that. I have no idea.
Because of their political views. Well, there are a couple things going on here, Tucker. First, they are diversity hires. They're hoping to skate by on their skin or gender or sexual preferences. But it really does highlight that the Biden administration, whoever's actually running it, is putting up activists masquerading as judges because the whole point is to get more votes to rubber stamp the left's social and political agenda. But even more so, Tucker, as you think about progressives, they've always viewed the Constitution and the law as obstacles to be avoided, but even more so, maybe dismantled. So why would you even bother knowing about it? Because you're not going to pay attention to them anyway. And the whole point of progressivism from day one until today is to dismantle the original intent of the Constitution, separation of power.
So while this guy's talking, the American Majority, which he's the CEO of, is a 501c3 right-wing nonprofit political training group. Started in 2008 in like Tea Party time, yeah. Or like for Tea Party reasons. Training, like political training, like media training. They say they've trained 4,000 people. Or weirdly enough, 3,998 people. Interesting. This dude's the founder as well.
Powers and all these other things that were put in place by our founders. They don't care about them. They don't want them. So why should you bother with them? Because you're never going to implement them because they're more a series of suggestions that you're trying to avoid.
Well, here's why. Because if you don't have the rule of law and equal application of the law, you don't have civil rights. And I thought they were for civil rights. So I don't know why people like Lindsey Graham vote to confirm judges who don't know anything about the Constitution. Like, what is this?
Because from the very beginning, progressive statists have been the enemy of basic civil rights, of the rule of law, of property rights, of all these things. And over the last 100 years, it's like their colors are coming out more and more, and it's getting harder and harder to hide that. But this has been the whole point of progressivism from day one, Tucker. They have no intention of any of these basic rights. Their goal is the administrative state, and quite frankly, ultimately, it's power, authoritarianism. And so the Constitution and the law are to be disregarded. They will make of them whatever they want them to be.
Who did he say this guy was?
Actually running it.
This guy's just spouting
going on here, Tucker.
Whatever.
This
federal judges, he joins us, can't be a judge. He probably will be. Ned Ryan is CEO of American Majority. He joins us tonight. Ned Ryan, thanks so much. I don't know what is going on, but when they start, look, it's fine if you have flaky sociology professors or administrators at Stanford or whatever, who cares? But airline pilots, heart surgeons, and federal judges.
Look at his book in the background. That's so
why
cute.
Are we allowing
He's so proud
this?
of himself.
Well, I think this is the entire point for progressives. I mean, you have a judge that doesn't know Article 2 or Article 5 of the Constitution.
Oh, is he just on a book tour?
This gentleman that doesn't know the Brady motion, the Brady rule. Again, as you pointed out, where hundreds, if not thousands, of Americans are being denied this basic right because of their political views. Well, there are a couple things going on here, Tucker. First, they are diversity hires. They're hoping to skate by on their skin or gender or sexual preferences. But it really does highlight that the Biden administration, whoever's actually running it, is putting up activists. They have no intention of any of these basic. Quite frankly, ultimately it's
So this is just
power,
some political talking head who
authoritarianism.
literally started
And so
a company to
the
train
Constitution
other
and the
political
law are to be
talking heads.
disregarded. They will
Just
make
coming
the
on
point is
here
not,
doing
not the
political
rule of
talking
law.
head stuff.
It's whatever they can make them to be to achieve what they want, and here we are.
We're so mesmerized by watching them tear down our institutions.
Sorta
we don't
trying
think
to
enough about
pretend
what
to
they're
be
gonna
credible.
Replace them with, and we should.
Authoritarianism.
Ned Ryan, exactly. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Tucker.
Subscribe to the.
So that's what they can do. They can get these like credible looking guys. They're on a news broadcast, so they must be credible, right? And they come on here and they just say all this honestly unhinged stuff. And like that's their job. I mean, he, like I said, this dude started a whole company to train people to be political. And they do millions of dollars. I was looking at their thing. They're doing like millions of dollars of revenue every single year. So, but Tucker will bring them on, make them look credible. That's part of the deal. So I'll be back for next time to analyze some more Tucker Carlson. Always a fun time.